Excellent. So we are working now. Welcome to week 2, part 2 of the Rebel Finance recaps. So this is the second part of week 2 of the Rebel Finance School, broken down into manageable little chunks so that, yeah, hopefully should be about 15-20 minutes for this, and then we shall go on to questions. Standard disclaimer, not a financial advisor. All of this is just pure opinion. It's what I think, it's what I might do, it's what I would do maybe. I'm not giving you an advice, I'm just giving you a little bit of education around the kinds of things that I consider useful, and it's entirely up to you what you do with it. The only guarantee is the full money back guarantee of what you have paid to be here tonight, which is the grand sum of 0. But enjoy. A quick recap on the practical steps to getting wealthy. If you remember, number 1, create yourself an emergency fund of about £1,000 or so. So you've got enough in the bank to cover life's little emergencies of, I don't know, your car goes for its MOT and it fails for some reason that you weren't expecting. So you've got some money to cover that. You need to take an emergency trip somewhere, so you can cover that. Your washing machine breaks down, those sorts of things. But remember, if your washing machine breaks down, you can always pop down to the laundrette. Apparently they're becoming very popular nowadays as meeting places. In fact, there's even some laundrettes which have started laying on book clubs and board game meetings at the laundrette, so that you have something to do whilst you're washing washes. There you go. New marketplace there. After you have got your emergency fund, it's time to pay off your expensive debt. By expensive debt, we are talking about anything above 5%. Generally, 3 to 5% is considered a moderate debt, and it's up to your personal feelings as to whether or not you want to clear that. Below 3% is generally, yeah, something that you can live with, because you can usually make returns on investments much higher than that. Now, of course, the one thing to consider here is if you have a mortgage, which is currently 2-3%, around that sort of level, and you've got it on a 5-year fixed rate, then in 5 years' time, the chances are interest rates are going to be much higher. I would expect to see interest rates to be somewhere in the region of 5 to 10%, probably 8, possibly even 8 to 12% in 5 years' time. So it will be a very interesting place to be, to see what happens in a couple of respects. One is people being able to keep up payments on their mortgage, and if they can't, what will happen to the housing market? So, you know, if you've got buy-to-let properties and that sort of thing nowadays at the moment, which are currently going up in price quite nicely, in 4 or 5 years' time, what will happen to the house prices? We've already seen some decrease in house prices in around London, I believe, about even drops by about 7 to 10% in the last 6 months. So the housing market is proving an interesting one. So in terms of paying off expensive debt, yeah, credit cards, absolutely. Any car loans or loans for furniture or anything like that, all those sorts of things, well worth paying off as soon as you can. As I say, mortgage, keep an eye on your mortgage, see where you are at the moment and where it's going now, because it may well switch that in 5 years' time. Rather than investing your money, it might actually work out better to overpay your mortgage. Once you've paid off your expensive debt, it's time to build your emergency fund of ideally 3 to 6 months of living expenses, potentially more if you can afford to, and then it's time to get into investing. Now, to go between 3 and 4, these aren't binary. You don't have to do just one or have to do just the other. You could actually do a bit of both at the same time. So you could increase your emergency fund while starting your investments. So there we go. In the UK, we are good savers, bad savers? What do you reckon? Well, I will tell you. we are pretty appalling savers on average, with an average savings rate of only 6%, which is pretty terrible. And you will understand why when we get to that in a minute. But that's why we want to think a bit differently. We want to see, can we shift from the mindset of the masses, as it were, and do something a bit different? Can we do something which will be more sort of beneficial over time? As Alan loves to say on his podcast and various other things, if you do normal, you'll get normal. If you do different, you'll get different. And if you can do exceptional, you will get exceptional. And it really is as simple as that. If you can shift your savings rate from the normal of 6%, if you can shift it up to a different, maybe 12%, you'll be doing much better. If you can shift it up to 50% somehow, you will be doing exceptionally well. If we look at one of the blogs by Mr. Money Mustache, this is quite an old one, it was 2012. He has details on the shockingly simple path behind early retirement. And if I can get my cursor open, will that bring that up? There we go. Oh, hold on. It won't. Gonna have to. Oh, so here we go. So that's this article here, which talks all about the sort of basic maths behind early retirement and how it is as simple as working out your savings rate, which is the percentage of your take-home pay that you save. So if you want to have a read through that later, you can. We will have a quick look at this graph that they got from Networthify and see how to change things there. And basically, here's a little quick cheat sheet table. So if your savings rate is 5%, you'll be able to retire in 66 years. But if you can push it up to 50%, then you can retire in 17 years, which is quite a difference. And you can adjust your savings rate in one of two ways. There's what we were doing through that net worth tracking last time, which basically means you can reduce your outgoings because you know what you're spending on, and you can see if you're spending any extra over what you really need to be spending. Or the other way is to increase your income. So if you can increase your income and not increase your spending by as much, then that is also going to increase your savings rate. So there we go. So yeah, it's a very interesting little article to read through. That one is very, very quick one. So that then brings us to, where did we get to? Mr. Money Mustache. So if we go back and then have a look at the Networthify website, which gives us that little tool to play with, as you can see, with a 6% savings rate, they're saying you can retire in 62 years. So quite a while to wait there. So for example, in figures, if you were earning £40,000 a year, spending 37,500 and only saving 2,500 a year, then that means that you would be, it would take 62 years to retire. Bringing that down to just 26%, sorry, rising that from 6% to 26%. So having an income of 40,000 with savings of 10,000, that actually brings your retirement down to 31 years. So you've halved it from 61 to 31 years just by increasing the savings rate by 20%. So it shows it really is worthwhile tracking down those expenses that you can reduce and finding some way to increase your income. Because if you can do that, then you can build up your financial freedom so much quicker. So that calculator is on networthify.com. There's either a link to it from the front page, or by using this URL, you can go there directly. So if I click on there, I'm going to have to escape out, aren't I? And then flick across. Here we go. So if we take an example, well, the example that they've given there is you're earning 50,000, you're saving 30,000. So that would be a 60% savings rate. That would mean that you get to retire in 12 years. And as we can see, the UK Well, they've got the UK down at 2%, but that was from 2008 figures. So hopefully they got a bit better since then. US, Germany, France. So even, you know, China and India, which have really good sort of savings rates because they've got not a very good state support system. Well, certainly India doesn't. China, I'm not so sure about, but they're still in sort of like the 30%. So if you can be extraordinary, if you can push it up to 50%, that would mean you would be on target to be financially independent in 16 and a half years. So it makes such a phenomenal difference if you can manage that. And the question is how you can manage it while still being comfortable. And this comes back to what we talked about 4 weeks ago, I think it was, where you are working out your values and what is important to you, and then getting your spend in line with your values so that you are both spending in line with your values and getting value for your spend. And if you can do both of those and still have a really good savings rate, then that's awesome. If you haven't got a great savings rate, but you can't reduce your expenses anymore, best thing to do is to aim for how can you increase your income. And there's always ways to do that, even if it's just going around the house and finding what there is that you don't use that you could sell. That, you know, that'll give you a little bit that you can put aside. Righty, so to go back to here, bring that one back up again. So that was that link. Another question we've had coming up recently, especially with everything that's going on in the investment market, is, you know, what about the collapsing market? And J.L. Collins from 2017 had a nice little article about, you know, is it time to panic? You know, everything's dropping, everything's falling through the floor. What should we do? Should we sell everything? The answer to that is no, not unless you have any other, you know, unless you don't have any other option. If you absolutely have to sell it because you have to have the money, then you don't have an option. But if you have the option to not sell, it's probably not the right thing to do, because it's only what's called a paper loss. So you can come to join in. So it's not an actual monetary loss, because the money that's there is only on paper. So it can go down, but then chances are, if you just sit with it for a few months, a few years, it will come back up again, and then it will go back above the level that it's currently at. So best thing to do, head over to YouTube, find J.L. Collins meditation and listen to that. Yeah. And here was a graph that Alan and Katie actually found and gave to him to put into the article. And it shows how, when there have been sort of crashes, what has happened afterwards. And you can see there that, you know, in 1921 to 1929, the markets went up by almost 500%, so 5 times. 1942 to 1966, they went up almost 10 times, 9.7 times. And 1982 to 2000, they went up 13.5 times. So quite phenomenal, really. And then 2009 to today, again, still doubled. The global markets are designed around consumers. They're designed around people buying things. And ever since the Second World War, that has been the emphasis. You know, you want to improve your quality of life, so you've got to buy stuff. And the majority of people in this world are of that thinking pattern. They believe that is what they need to do, you know, to show that they're getting somewhere, to show that, you know, they are improving. They need to buy stuff, they need to have the latest stuff, which isn't great for them, because it, you know, it extends the period that they won't be financially independent. But it's good for us, because it means that they're buying things from companies who we would have a small share in through your global investment fund. And yes, so it's money into your pocket essentially. So there we go. Hopefully you'll remember the homework. This homework from this week would be to work out what is your savings rate. So savings rate is based on your income minus your expenditure. That is your savings. And then if you take your savings and divide it by your income, that gives you your savings rate as a percentage. So your income minus your expenditure is your savings. And then your savings divided by your income is your savings rate. So the previous homework, although we're coming up to the end of the month, so it's a good time to do it. Work out how much you spent this month, worked out how much you saved this month, and make sure that you have some tracking in place ready for next month and the months going forward. Excuse me. And optionally, you can categorize all your spend so you know where it's going, and check out whether you are getting value from your spend, and are you spending to your values. So there we go. I am going to stop the recording now, and we can open up the floor for any questions.